Hello, everyone, and welcome all. We're just waiting to see the number of people because there's 200 people who subscribed. So just wait 1 more minute, 2 more minutes to see if everybody can join. Okay. Hello, everyone. I think we can slowly start. I'll make a slow start by introducing my colleagues. So we have Miss Tine Jacobs from FWO, who will a bit later on present Weave within FWO for 2025. We have Florence Quist from the FNRS, who will present Weave within the FNRS in 2025, and Gregory Apsilis, who will take care of all the questions that come in. So you can, during the session, ask your questions. Gregory and the other colleagues as well, we will try to simple questions. We will try to answer them immediately, and he will also take care of gathering the questions that are liked and that are more important to have a live reaction at the end of this session. So welcome everyone to this information session on Weave. As indicated, this is an information session specifically for Belgian researchers who are eligible either for FWO or for FNRS funding. You can go to the next slide, Florence. So this session is made up. Yeah, the session is made up in out of four parts. I will first give some information about Weave in general, to how does it work within FWO and FNRS in general. Then my colleague Florence will go into detail into how it works within the FNRS for those researchers that can ask funding to the FNRS. Then Tina will do the same thing for those researchers that are eligible for funding from FWO, and we will finish with the question and answers. And we will start with a small general video clip on Weave.
Weave is a cross-European initiative to fund and support excellent international research projects. It allows researchers from up to 3 different countries or regions to apply for funding through a single evaluation procedure. Weave aims to make it easier for researchers to collaborate across borders and simplify submission and selection procedures. By enabling bilateral as well as trilateral scientific cooperation within Europe, Weave contributes to the European research area. To apply, a team of researchers choose one coordinating applicant who submits the joint proposal to their respective funding organisation. The other researchers then submit a copy of the proposal to their own funding agencies. Weave is based on the lead agency procedure principle. The funder that receives the proposal evaluates it according to its internal rules. The funding recommendation is communicated to the other funders involved. You can check where, when, and how to apply using the Find Your Funding tool on the Weave website. Enter the corresponding organisations, potential start date, and duration of the project. Click Submit and the tool will search for opportunities and provide all relevant information, including submission links.
Yes. So that's the video that explains in general how the Weave initiative works. So how does it work in practice? So first of all, if you want to participate in Weave, you need to find out what are the opportunities you can participate in with your partners abroad. So you need to know which countries, which agencies participate, which funding schemes are open for Weave. And you need to know that normally Weave only applies to basic research in all scientific domains. And there is a limit to the number of partners that you can add because it can be a trilateral project. So asking funding from 3 different agencies in total. So the research team country A has an idea, contacts research team country B. You can go, yes. So together they draft a joint collaborative research project. So here it's very important because since you're in competition with other projects within a given research call, you need to make sure that each team that you add to the proposition needs to have added value because the difference should be in this collaboration, of course. So you always need to justify all these things and not just yeah, do it as such. And where to submit, this is a free choice. But you need to understand that if you participate in a Weave proposal, the success rate will be capped at 20%. So as said, the 2 teams work together, A and B. One team takes the lead and submits to the lead agency, and then the participating team, team B, they also need to submit, but they only submit an administrative submission to the partner agency, and this is to assure that everything is well registered. Then afterwards, the lead agency informs the partner agency of the submissions. There is an exchange to verify the eligibility. If all parties are eligible, you go to the evaluation procedure of the lead agency. So the lead agency does the evaluation. The lead agency comes to a decision for the project. As indicated, you are in competition with all the other proposals that are submitted within this instrument. The lead agency comes to a funding decision. Is the proposal that is submitted, is it worth funding? This is afterwards communicated to the partner agency, who ratifies then afterwards this decision. And in the end, it's so then it goes back to the different agencies. So each agency funds its own researchers, meaning that, and that is the last point on this slide, yes, that funding remains within borders, although it is possible to work together, of course. Yeah, next slide. Yes. So what is the added value of Weave? Yeah, you can foster a balanced collaboration. There's no you apply for funding that is needed by each partner, but it's not necessary to do it in on both sides. So you only go through one evaluation procedure, so there's no double jeopardy. That's very, and it is open to all thematics, which is also, so it depends on your idea, your cooperation that that is evaluated. Um, Finally, it also, what is very convenient is that applicants that are already familiar with the regulation, because there's no extra instruments. These are the regular instruments to finance research projects within each agency that are used. Yes. So for now, there are 12 participating agencies in Europe in Weave. So you can see them here on the map. There's 12 from 11 countries. Of course, Belgium, there are two different agencies, FWO and FNRS. But you also have, so in Austria, it's FWF, in the Czech Republic, GHCR, Luxembourg, the National Research Fund, the National Science Center in Poland, the Swedish Research Council for Sustainable Development in Sweden, the Croatian Science Foundation, the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft in Germany, the Research Council of Norway, ARIS in Slovenia, and SNSF, the Swiss National Science Foundation in Switzerland. Oh, yeah. Next slide is, of course, here you see them distributed on the map. And what is very interesting, especially for people for researchers from Flanders, what is new is that Flanders is exploring a call with the NWO for the domain of science. And this is a pilot call this year within FWO. Tina will talk more about this a bit more about this later when she specifies Weave within FWO. And I can also mention there's an online FWO and NWO session that will take place later this week on the 14th of February from in the late afternoon. And within the link, there's also a link, but I'm pretty sure you can also find it on the FWO website. So for Belgian researchers, in practice, what can you do? You submit that there's two possibilities. Either you participate in your own call, meaning that for FWO researchers, you participate in the call that is currently open for junior and senior research projects, fundamental research, and that you associate your partners within this call. You can all for partners from French-speaking Belgium, it is the other way around. So you participate in the PDR call, the Projet de Recherche call of the FNRS, which will open at the middle of the month of May. What you do is you submit the full proposal with budget details for all partners. As indicated already, the other side also needs to make an administrative submission to its own respective agency, and then the evaluation procedure goes on as indicated. And so the other way around is to submit a full proposal elsewhere for a funder abroad. And if you're a researcher from the Flemish community, you have plenty of options. Because you can participate in the calls as indicated here from ARIS, so Slovenia, DFG, the Germans, FWO-F, Austria, Luxembourg, the call of the FNRS, so NCN, the Swiss, and the Swedish organization as well. And as indicated, there's this new call also with NWO, but only in the domain of science. And so for researchers from the French-speaking community, this is a bit more limited because the FNRS up until now only has 4 different partners: the Germans, FWO, as indicated, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. So here it's also the lead partner submits the full proposal with all budget details, and then there is an obligatory administrative submission for all other partners at the respective agencies, and the lead agency will do the regular evaluation procedure. Just a bit schematic as well. How does it work submitting an FWO? So the deadline for the call of FWO is the 1st of April. If it's FWO and FNRS researchers working together, you need to submit an administrative version at the FNRS before the 8th of April of 2025 via eSpace. And so if you submit, then you need to know that FWO applications need to abide by all the FWO regulations, and the FNRS researchers need to abide by all the FNRS regulations, including project quota. So the project duration, it's a maximum of 4 years. So here, FWO is the lead. So FWO performs the evaluation, and FWO proposes the funding decision to the FNRS. The FNRS then ratifies this decision by December 2025, and projects normally start on the 1st of January 2026. And so as you can see, there's a large choice of trilateral partners that you can include in principle, because all the trilateral partners that you see here in yellow can be added to the proposal. So the other way around as well. So submitting at the FNRS means that you submit within the PDR call. The deadline normally is the beginning of July, the 8th of July normally, and you need to the people. The persons from FWO participating need to submit an administrative version at the FWO before the 15th of July 2025 via the e-loket. So here again, all the regular regulations of FWO and FNRS apply. And so the Flemish partners, they must abide by the FWO regulations. Here again, the project duration is a maximum of 4 years. And in this case, FNRS performs the evaluation. FNRS proposes the funding decision to FWO, which is then ratified by FWO. And also here, the project starts on the 1st of January 2026. And here there's a more limited number of trilaterals that can be done, because it can only be done with the partners that the FNRS has at this level, so Luxembourg, Germany, or Switzerland. So in final slide, this is a bit to give you an overview. We started with FWO, we started with Weave in 2022. So there's 3 finished calls with FWO at the moment. You can see that 2022 was a bit a year to start it up. It was the first year, not that many submissions. The second year already a lot better, and the third year even more applications. And so, as indicated, you are in competition with all with all other proposals that are submitted. So there is a real competition, and so the success rate, of course, is not guaranteed. And now I hand over to my colleague Florence, who will go into detail of weave within the FNRS.
Yeah. So first, maybe a small focus on the FNRS collaboration so far with our 4 partners, as Joël has just mentioned to you. So Luxembourg, Switzerland, Flanders, and Germany. In terms of weave projects, so the projects that were actually submitted into another partner agency, these are the numbers. This in 2024, we received 52. There were 52 projects submitted in another agency than the FNRS, and for a total of 10 financed in the end. And in the other way, in our PDR call, there were 55 projects submitted in collaboration with weave partners, and 14 were actually funded. So as I said, it's just a repetition that we collaborate with these 4 partners. So first of all, the first thing that you need to know in order to apply for this scheme, where do I put my project? Do I put it at another agency, an agency other than the FNRS? For us, it's a weave project. So basically, you go out, you submit your project outside of the FNRS. It's a weave project. Do you submit it at the FNRS in the regular call of the FNRS? Then it is a PDR project. Okay. So as mentioned before, in a weave, the partner agency is responsible for the entire evaluation. What you do need to do is submit administratively within our platform eSpace within 7 days after the call closure of the partner. You can only have 1 weave application at a time. And weave partners have to respect, of course, the rules set in place by their partner agencies. So you should always check the accumulation rules for each partner. The proposals submitted are in direct competition with the other proposals that this agency received, but everything will be analyzed and evaluated all together. And then the funding agency, the responsible lead agency, will give its proposal funding to the FNRS, which will ratify the results. We have a specific rule and regulation for this weave scheme, which is Règlement weave. So please consult it. On the other side, you can also, as I said, if you apply for the FNRS call in the Crédit and Projet call, you apply for a PDR. So here the FNRS is fully responsible for the entire evaluation, of course. Of course, the weave partners have to submit administratively to their own funding agency as well. According to the PDR rule, you can only have 1 application per year as a main promoter. But of course, once again, check the accumulation rules for your partners as well. The proposals submitted are in direct competition with all the other PDR proposals that are received by the FNRS and are evaluated within the 14 scientific panels that we set for our call. And of course, once we take the funding decision, we propose it to our partners, which then ratifies the result. And of course, there is a specific regulation, Règlement PDR, that you should consult for this. So let's look at the specific examples of applying for weave. So once again, you go into the call of another agency, which is one of our partners. So as we said, we have 4 possibilities. So you can collaborate with Luxembourg. So here, your full proposal submission should be done within the core call of the Luxembourg. Of course, administrative submission on eSpace. And if you have other partners, because you can have trilateral collaborations, then these other partners also have to submit administratively towards their own funding agency. Project duration, so if it's on a bilateral call, a bilateral collaboration, it's either 2 or 4 years. But if DFG, so the Germans are involved, then it has to be a 3-year project. The deadline for FNR is on April 10th, 2025. Our deadline at the FNRS for the administrative submission is on April 17th. And of course, you should check the other partner's deadline. And then the evaluation procedure, once again, is done entirely by the FNR. And the project start date is set for January 1st, 2026. Similarly, you can go to the Swiss. There you would participate into their encouragement de projet call with the administrative submission. Here, project duration is 2 or 4 years, 3 years if DFG is involved. The SNSF, so you have to know that they have 2 deadlines and the FNRS participate in both deadlines. So there's one deadline on April 1st and a deadline on October 1st with the respective administrative deadline on April 8th and October 8th. The evaluation procedure is done by the SNSF and the start date of the project. So for the April deadline would be January 1st, 2026. And for the October deadline, June 1st, 2026. You can, of course, go to the FWO. You apply to their junior and senior research project with the administrative submission done on eSpace as well. The project duration is, once again, 2 or 4 years, 3 years if DFG is involved. The FWO deadline is on April 1st. The FNRS deadline for the administrative submission is on April 8th. And the project start date should be January 1st, 2026. Now we'll get to the special case of the DFG, so the Germans administration. So there you would submit a proposal in the individual research grant call of the DFG. The project duration is 3 years, no exceptions. So whenever you apply with DFG, it's going to be 3 years, not less, not more. We have a specific case because doctoral students in Belgium are supposed to last for 4 years. So what we do is we give the possibility of an extra year of funding for the doctoral student, which is not included in the budget that we have planned for WEAVE. In order of dates, we have key dates. So the DFG deadline, they will tell you that they don't have a deadline, but we have an agreement with them that we have an internal deadline with them on April 1st, which means that the deadline to submit at the FNRS is for the administrative submission is on April 8th. And the project start date for these projects is also January 1st, 2026. Here you have a general summarizing table with all the relevant information. And of course, we do advise you to read our WEAVE regulations as well, as they will give you more information on the specific eligibility criterion for the FNRS participant. Now, once again, you can also include partners from outside the Fédération Wallonie-Brussels in your PDR applications. So here, if you apply with the Luxembourg, so FNR, SNSF Switzerland, and FWO Belgium, so here your full proposal submission is also done within the projet de recherche call of the FNRS. And of course, you have the administrative submission for all the other partners. The project duration is always 2 or 4 years with those 3 partners. The key dates normally our deadline will be, the call will open in the first week of May and close on the first week of July. So July 8th, the date will be confirmed on the opening of the call. And of course, the partner has a deadline, a 7 working day deadline after the FNRS call. The evaluation procedure will be done by the FNRS entirely within its 14 scientific commissions. And the project start date will be on January 1st. There's a typo I can see, 2026. You can also, so if you have a project where you include German partners from the DFG, so here, once again, you participate in the projet de recherche call. The project duration will also be only 3 years. You have to be aware that, so for the cost of the doctoral student, the cost of the entire duration of the PhD has to be included within your maximum budget. And once again, the FNRS will evaluate the project, and if granted, the project will start on April 1st, 2026. Now, if you do a trilateral collaboration, which is also possible, so the project duration is 2 or 4 years, except it goes to 3 automatically if a DFG partner is involved. And for projects not involving DFG, the start date will be January 1st, 2026. And for projects involving DFG, the start date will be April 1st, 2026. Once again, some small typos. So here is again another summary table of every characteristic of the call, but we do advise you to read our PDR regulations if you want to have more information on the eligibility criterion and other admissibility of costs and everything. And here is a summary of the timeline that we have. So as you see, these are different deadlines. So the April 1st for FWO, DFG, and SNSF, April 10th for the FNR. And of course, if you submit a PDR, the deadline should be July 8th for the PDR. And feel free to contact us if ever you have any more information. And I'll give the mic to Tina.
Thank you, Florence. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tina Jacobs. I'm Advisor International Affairs at the FWO, so the research funding agency in Flanders. I will guide you now through the WEAF principle, how it is embedded within the FWO. So in general terms, as Florence already told you, you can choose if you want to identify FWO as the lead agency or partner agency. When the proposal is submitted to FWO, so when we are lead agency, it will have to be submitted to one of our FWO expert panels, and you will have to make the differentiation between a junior or a senior research project fundamental research. We have a specific form in our FWO ELOCAT, and it's really called FWO acts as lead agency. So please make sure to choose the correct form. Which is also new is the fact that since this call onwards, we have included a new tab in our online application form. It's a research security tab. So it includes 10 questions, and it is based on a self-assessment made by the main applicant of a proposal. Just for your information, tomorrow we will have a general info session specifically on this new tab. So you can still register for this info session, which will take place online tomorrow afternoon, if you want to learn more about this novelty in our form. We will also include here in the slides an overview of our FWO expert panels. So you can read through the scopes of the panels and also learn more, for example, about our specific interdisciplinary panel. When the project is submitted to FWO as lead, it will be evaluated, of course, in competition with all the other projects submitted to FWO, the junior or senior research project fundamental research. So it's really in competition with the entire batch. It's not evaluated separately, the WEAF projects. When all panels took place, we will formulate a funding recommendation to our partner agencies, and we will ask, of course, for their formal ratification. And afterwards, each WEAF funder will fund his own research teams. So the FWO funding will only go to the researchers, the research groups in Flanders. When the proposal is submitted to a lead agency abroad, FWO becomes partner agency. It is submitted according to the timeline and the system of the lead agency, but there is an obligatory administrative submission that needs to be done to the FWO as partner agency within 7 calendar days after the deadline of the lead agency. We have another specific form for this, and it's called the FWO acts as partner agency form, also available in our FWO ELOCAT. Then when the evaluation procedure of the lead agency took place, they will do funding recommendations, and our board of trustees will ratify this decision. There will be no separate FWO evaluation done, and we will fund the involved Flemish researchers of the application, of course. Next slide, thank you. Some key elements. So regardless of the fact whether FWO is lead or partner agencies, for the researchers who are affiliated to an eligible institution in the Flemish community, those who request the FWO funding, the following rules and conditions always apply. So the researchers affiliated to an institution in the Flemish community always have to follow the regulations of our research project's fundamental research with regards to eligibility, budget conditions, etc. The budget forks for staff and consumables also apply always if we are lead or partner agency, it doesn't matter. So this means that at least 50,000 euro per year for the entire project, so on the project level, should be requested for staff and consumables. And there is a maximum of 145,000 a year for each Flemish or federal institution that requests the FWO funding. Another thing is, of course, the quota that has to be respected for co-supervisors, supervisors, or supervisor spokespersons at FWO sites. And since for all calls actually launched since 15th of January 2025, so this is really a new quota, there is a maximum of 1 submission of a research project, fundamental research per application round. This includes the WEAF projects, and there is still the maximum of 2 research projects, fundamental research requested and ongoing, also including the WEAF projects. The reference date is the date on which the newly started research project, fundamental research, including WEAF, would normally start. So we will take that date to make the calculations for the quota. Next slide, please. Here you see a map of the WEAF possibilities within FWO for the current call. So you see there indeed, as the colleagues from FNRS already informed you about, that we have now a pilot call with NWO, the domain science. So it's really a specific domain of NWO, but this is something new, and I will talk about that later on. The next slide is also a list of our current partners. As you can see, for the researchers in Flanders, we have the possibility to partner up with colleagues from Austria, of course, from the colleagues of French-speaking community in Belgium, Germany, Luxembourg, Poland, Slovenia, Switzerland, and Sweden. And since this year, the Netherlands as well. But you have to be aware of the fact that currently only bilateral projects are possible with the Netherlands. So you cannot add any other partners or third partners from another additional country or region. With the other ones, so with the list above, you can make bilateral or trilateral projects. Will be added in the coming years are, of course, our partnership with the Czech Republic, with Norway and Croatia. And of course, in the future, other funders might sign the WEAF agreement, and they might become a possibility for the researchers in Flanders as well. Next slide. Here is a schematic overview. So when you decide to submit the project to another lead agency, FWO becomes partner agency, and you can see here which combinations actually are possible when you submit at a specific lead agency. Here you can see what we wanted to stress out a bit is that also collaboration with Croatian partners is possible if you submit to ARIS, the Slovenian funding agency, or to the Swiss agency, to SNSF. Then you can make trilateral combinations, including partners from Croatia. Now I will go through the separate partners and I will focus on I will highlight the most important parts because the general lines will be the same, of course. You can try to, or you can aim to collaborate with Austrian partners. This means that you will submit to FWO as lead, for example. This is the first possibility. Our deadline is always 1st of April. It is crucial to know that your host institution in Flanders will have internal deadlines as well that you need to respect. So make sure you inform yourself in due time on these internal deadlines as well, because 1st of April is probably not the same deadline internally at your host institution. At the same time, when you do a submission to a lead agency, as I said before, there is always the obligation to do an administrative submission to the involved partner agencies. For FWF, it's also very crucial that you upload an identical PDF. So the colleagues of the FWF are quite strict about that. So as soon as you have submitted to the FWO in the eLoket your final project submission, make sure to generate your PDF with all the attachments, with all the information, not only the project description, and upload it in the FWF system in the administrative form as well. As always, the partners in Flanders need to follow the regulations of the FWO, including the project quota. At the Austrian side, the partners have to follow the FWF regulations. It's about project with a duration of maximally 4 years. FWO does the evaluation, we do our funding, we propose a funding decision to FWF, they ratify, but you have to take into account the fact that it's mostly delayed until spring the next year. So in December, the end of this year, December, FWO as lead will only be able to do a conditional allocation. We will clearly communicate it in a conditional way to the researchers and to the institutions, but a final ratification will only follow a few months later. However, the FWO contract on paper, your project will start on 1st of January 2026. But as you know, for each project at FWO site, research project fundamental research, there is a phase out period of 2 years possible after the official end date of your projects. So remaining funds can still be used up to 2 years after the official end date. So that is why we still have some margin left for the funding to be used. Collaboration with Austrian partners also means, of course, that you can submit to FWF, then FWO becomes partner agency. Although FWF normally works with a system of continuous submission, they agreed to have some kind of cut-off date whenever FWO as partner agency is included. And luckily, it's also the 1st of April. So this makes it a bit easier to remember that FWF as lead also has the same deadline as FWO as lead. For their specific regulations, you can always check their website. There is the obligation for the administrative submission to FWO. The other points are actually quite similar to the previous slide. FWF will do a funding recommendation to FWO. We will ratify in due time, and normally the result will still be available end of this year, and again, projects start on 1st of January. Another possibility is to partner up with colleagues in Switzerland. When you submit to FWO, the rules are the same, the timeline as well. Of course, your partners in Switzerland must abide to the SNSF regulations. It's also 4-year projects maximally. And here the timing is the following. So the results will be communicated together with the project fundamental research mid-December 2025. Project start on 1st of January. And as you can see on each of these slides, at the upper corner right, you will see the trilateral possibilities as well, but I will not go through them in detail. When you decide to submit your proposal to SNSF as lead, we become, of course, partner agency. SNSF also has a 1st of April deadline. That's easy again, but you must be aware of the fact that it's not possible to submit your project within the October deadline. SNSF has 2 deadlines, 1st of April, 1st of October, but the 1st of October deadline is not a possibility for FWO as partner. Then you will have to wait to the next year, the next deadline. The rules are the same again, so I will not go into detail. SNSF communicates the results, and it's foreseen also by the end of 2025, so you can start 1st of January again. Then we have the colleagues of Luxembourg. The FWO deadline again, 1st of April, of course. Luxembourg partners must follow the FNR rules. Here, the project duration when FWO is lead is maximally 4 years at both sides. So at Luxembourg side and at Flanders sites, it's possible to submit a 4-year project. Be aware that it's different when FNR is lead agency, but I will come to that in the next slide. We will do our evaluation. We propose to FNR and they ratify, and it's communicated together with all the other results of our regular projects call by mid-December, and we start on 1st of January. When you submit to the colleagues of FNR, they have a deadline this year on the 10th of April. So 7 calendar days after this deadline, make sure to do your administrative submission to FWO. Here, I must highlight the project duration. When FNR is lead, we follow a bit the rules. With regards to project duration, we follow the core program. That's their program in which Weave is embedded. And it concerns as such a project with a duration of maximally 3 years. However, there are costs allowed in the 4th year, but only PhD related costs. So in case a PhD student is requested in a 4th year at FNR site, the Flemish applicant is also allowed to apply for 4th year budget, but only costs for a PhD and a bench fee for this PhD. And of course, this 4th year also has to be scientifically justified in the application. Again, here the results are expected end of 2025, and we will start at FWO site on 1st of January. Then we move to the Slovenian partners. Here it's important to let you know that for the administrative submission at ARIS site, so at Slovenian site, the deadline, it needs to be submitted to ARIS, the administrative submission needs to be done to ARIS before 1st of April, 5 o'clock, and a copy of the complete application as submitted to FWO as lead has to be submitted as well to ARIS within 7 days after our deadline. So this is a bit different from the other partners. Please take this into account when you decide to partner up with a colleague in Slovenia, that this administrative version is a bit specific for ARIS. The project duration when we are lead, maximally 4 years, but in the next slide, you will see that it's different when we are partner. Again, communications available mid-December and start on 1st of January. When ARIS is lead, we are partner. I must say that the current call recently closed. So ARIS had a deadline the end of January. So the proposals are now under evaluation, and their next call will probably be launched somewhere in autumn 2025. These projects, if successful, will only start on 1st of January 2027. But as soon as we have more information from ARIS, we will of course publish this online on our web pages. Here you will see project duration when ARIS is lead, it's maximally 3 years, also at the FWO site, at the Flemish site. Please take this into account. So for the current call, we will expect results somewhere in autumn this year, and they will start as well on 1st of January. Let's move over to the partners in Germany. So here it's crucial to know that project duration is maximally 3 years. This is kind of a basic rule. Whenever German partners are involved, the project duration is 3 years, even when it's submitted at FWO, and even if it concerns trilateral projects, it's always maximally 3 years. No possibility for a fourth PhD year. FWO does not have this rule in place. Ratification by DFG, it's a bit similar to the colleagues of FWO-F of Austria. We only expect final ratification in spring the next year. So it's again a conditional allocation mid-December this year. Start project 1st of January. When DFG becomes the lead agency, they luckily agreed as well to work with some kind of cut-off date, because normally DFG as well has a system of continuous submission. But again, 1st of April is some kind of deadline or cut-off date if you want FWO to become partner agency. Project duration, as I said in the previous slide, maximally 3 years. DFG proposes the funding decision to FWO somewhere in autumn. We ratify, and the results are known by the end of 2025 in principle as well. Start of contracts at FWO site is always 1st of January. So we are almost there. We have the Polish partners. NCN becomes partner agency. It's you have to be careful when you draft the proposal, because NCN, even as partner agency, they have some very specific criteria that may impact eligibility if they are not respected or if they are not complied with. So, for example, you cannot mention any names of PhD students or postdocs at Polish sites, because they are obliged to work with an open selection procedure in Poland. So that is why you cannot mention any names of the PhD students, postdocs recruited at Polish sites, not even in the FWO as lead application. And you should always carefully justify the budget and use the exchange rate of NCN. It is available online. So whenever you make the switch from euro to zloty, you need to respect the NCN exchange rate. The other bullets are quite similar as to the other partners when FWO is lead. So we communicate them as well mid-December, and we start 1st of January. When NCN is lead agency, the timeline is somehow different. So the current call closed mid-December 2024. A next call will probably be launched mid-September 2025, with again a deadline mid-December. These projects are evaluated during 2026, so they, if successful, they will only start on the 1st of January 2027. But for the call that was currently closed, of course, we expect mid-2025 the funding recommendations from NCN, and the projects will start 1st of January 2026 at FWO sites. The partners from Sweden, the partners from FORMAS is the funding agency, of course. There are again some elements that may impact the eligibility at Swedish sites. So the Swedish part of your joint integrated WEAF proposal must follow the restriction within FORMA's areas of responsibility. So it's again, of course, a program for fundamental basic research, but FORMAS has some scopes: environment, agricultural sciences, and spatial planning. So we have an overview available online on our webpage, where you can find more information about FORMA's areas of responsibility to make sure that the Swedish part of a project is eligible for FORMAS. Project duration at Flemish sites, at FWO site, is again maximally 4 years, but please note that at FORMAS sites, Swedish site, it's always fixed at 4 years. So shorter project duration is even not possible at Swedish site. Please take this into account. When you submit to FORMAS, it's the next slide, thank you. There, a call was also recently closed, autumn 2024. We don't know the next upcoming call timeline yet, so it's probably launched in autumn. And if the projects are successful, they will start 1st of January 2027 for FWO site. Here again, we want to draw your attention to the scope of FORMAS to make sure that your project is eligible, and the project duration at Swedish sites is fixed at 4 years. And then we come at least to our most recent collaboration, so the pilot call with the colleagues of NWO Domain Science. As you can see, trilaterals not allowed in this phase, so it only concerns bilateral FWO-NWO projects. All Dutch partners must follow the rules of NWO Domain Science. There are again some strict eligibility rules, criteria. The pilot call, is really organized with the department, the domain science, exacte en natuurwetenschappen in Dutch. So only proposals eligible within the fields of that domain can submit an application, of course. So this means that some FWO expert panels are not eligible, are really excluded from this pilot call. We have drafted some guidelines. The link is also in the slides. So please carefully read these guidelines before starting your applications to make sure that your project proposal really fits the NWO domain science policy or their program. For the rest, I mean, it follows the rules and the timeline of our other partners when we are the lead, at least. But when NWO is lead, it's the next slide. So NWO lead and FWO partner, here the deadline is approaching. So projects can still be submitted to NWO as lead by 28th of February, end of this month. Don't forget your obligatory administrative submission to FWO. Be careful when you draft your proposal. Make sure it fits the NWO domain science focus, an area of responsibility. Carefully read our guidelines. Project duration, no news over there, so it's maximally 4 years. NWO performs the evaluation and we expect a funding recommendation. We expect it somewhere in autumn and the projects will start on 1st of January next year, so 2026. Then 2 slides with some points of attention from FWO side. Please make sure whenever you submit a proposal, a jointly written proposal to a lead agency, make sure to indicate, include, and scientifically justify the budget of all included teams. So also from the foreign research team, because it's the lead agency who will evaluate the entire project, including all the budget requested. Also make sure that the names of the main applicants and the requested budgets in the lead agency application are identical to what you submit or to what you include in the administrative submission to the partner agency. Because some discrepancy between the lead agency submission and the partner agency submission might even lead to ineligibility of your application. So please really be careful that there are no discrepancies, that it's really one-on-one. And respect, of course, the FWO budget forks. The third bullet over there. So despite the fact that for some, in some lead agency application forms, they only request information about the main applicant of a project, you have to make sure, or it is required in the FWO administrative form that you list all persons, Flemish, non-Flemish. Everyone who takes up an official role in the project has to be included in the FWO form, because we really need this information. And don't forget the obligatory administrative submission. Unfortunately, it happens sometimes that there is no administrative submission done to the partner agency, but this also leads to ineligibility, which is, of course, a pity if you put so much work in a jointly written project. And make sure to upload the entire project, not only the project description, but all attachments as well. Then, of course, you cannot submit an identical WEAF project to more than one funder in the same budget year. This is not possible. The project duration depends on the choice of the lead agency. As I said before, when you submit to ARIS, Slovenia as lead, or FNR Luxembourg as lead, project duration is maximally 3 years. And whenever DFG is involved, it's maximally 3 years also at FWO side. Here we want to point out as well that you have to be aware that at FWO side, the project duration of the entire integrated project, so the project as a whole, is taken into account. So we do not only look at the period in which FWO funding is requested, but we really take into account the project duration of the entire project. For example, if at FWO side, only budget is requested for 1 year, But at the foreign side, for example, partners of FNRS, they request funding of 2 years. Also at FWO side, it will be a 2-year project. It will be taken into account as a 2-year project for the calculation of the quota, for the timing of our reporting, etc. Success rate of the lead agency applies, kept at 20%, and communication is always done through the lead agency, so where the proposal is submitted and evaluated. On the next slide, you can find some websites of the FWO and of course our contacts. So please don't hesitate to reach out whenever you have more questions. And now I think it's time for some Q&A.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Joël, Florence, and Tina for guiding us through all those interesting slides. We indeed accumulated quite some questions over the course of the past hour. Some have already been answered live, but no, in the chat. And we still got around 15 left to answer live. Some are kind of related, so I'll try to group a few of them. So let's kick off with the first question, which is, can you submit a proposal that is focused on translational research? So at FWO, of course, we have opened a fundamental research scheme. So that should actually be the focus of your proposal. There is an option in, for example, medical panels to have some translational aspects, but of course the option, the focus should still be on fundamental research. And I would advise you to go to our website. If you consider submitting to FWO, to go to our website, read the scope of the panels, and there, especially in the medical panels, is very clearly indicated what is allowed and what is not allowed. And as it kind of deviates from the 100% fundamental research focus, I would also in this case advise to contact the partner agencies and see whether it also falls within the scope of what they fund. But maybe Florence, Joël, you can add something on FNRS.
Yes, let me perhaps start. I think that in this sense, the calls of FNRS and FWO are quite similar for us as well. FNRS finances fundamental research. However, also in the medical domain, some of the scientific committees can also allow for more translational research. And I would advise you also to look into these categories, in particular, the Sciences de la Vie et de la Santé, the fourth one, where more possibilities are there. Florence, you would like to add something perhaps?
No, I agree completely. This is exactly what I was going to say. There's 1 or 2 panels where there are more translational, but the focus here is for fundamental research.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then we can move to the next one, which is a question on the salary of the spokesperson, whether he or she can fund their own salary within the call. At FWO, this is not possible, and I see Florence already nodding no. So I guess this is also not the case at FNRS.
Exactly. We're fully aligned.
All right, great. Let's then move on. There are a few questions. I think maybe Florence, you can answer them because I think they are kind of related to the PhD +1 in the DFG case. So there is, I'm not sure I understood the +1 year for doctoral students in DFG. Should the Belgian partner include the +1 year in her budget, or is it separate? Can you give an example? And then there's a second question. Could you please explain what exactly happens with the 4th year of a postdoctoral student budget in Belgium when DFG is involved and the project cannot be longer than 3 years?
Yeah. So it's well, simple-ish. So if you apply for a weave so DFG is lead, then at this point you ask for, so the project duration will only be 3 years. So you will only get 3 years of budget for your doctoral student. The extra year that is needed to complete the project, you will need to request to the FNRS. So you send us about 6 months before the end of your project, you send the FNRS request for this additional year, along with a positive evaluation from the accompanying committee of the doctoral student. And here we will grant an extra year of funding, which is completely outside of the budget that we have promised. When you come to the FNRS call and you add a DFG partner, a German partner, the project duration here also is 3 years. However, in order to compensate this difference in duration of PhD, we have there you can request a PDR for 3 years, but with the budget of a 4-year PDR. So that means that in that specific case, when you have a PDR and you include a German partner, you need to budget the cost of your PhD students for all 4 years within your budget. I don't know if I was completely clear, but this is the best I can do so far.
I guess anyway, the contact details of your organization, they are in the PPT, and you're always free to reach out to the respective agencies in case something was not clear, or if you had additional questions, we'd be more than happy to help you any further. Then there's actually a question, can we apply as FWO as lead without the Flemish institution being the spokesperson? Tine, is that something you could tackle?
Yes, of course. You should be aware that actually there is always a supervisor spokesperson that has to be identified at FWO side. So even when we are partner agency, you will see that in the form. That's why we always advise, of course, to start your application in the ELOCAT as soon as possible. So it is possible that the lead agency is, for example, FNRS, and that you have there a leading colleague, but there will always be a supervisor spokesperson needed at FWO sites as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Then there's another one, and the last one, I guess, not the last one in this chat, but the last one that person asks, we can lead one proposal, but we can be involved as the partner in another call as well. Am I right? Not sure to which agency this is referring, but on FWO side, whether you act as whether we are the lead agency and you would submit your proposal to us, or whether you're a partner in a proposal that is submitted elsewhere. That is not possible, because you can have only one submission as an FWO researcher per application round. I see there are still a few questions as well, Florence, on the number of proposals on FRS side. So maybe this is a time to also maybe clarify or these aspects as well.
Yeah, so I invite everyone to read our rules on what you can accumulate with what. So at the FNRS, you can accumulate one PDR and one weave. So one time when you come to in our call, in the FNRS call, and one time one project in which you go into another lead agency call. So this is the main rule here. Of course, you cannot have two weaves applications at the same time. So within 1 year, you can only apply one time in another agency call. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Then there's a question on the number of partners. So how many partners from Fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles and from Flanders can be part of a weave project, and what are the maximum funding for each of them? So let me start by saying that the composition of the team on each side has to follow the regulations of their respective funder, of course. And Joël, on your side, these are?
Yes, so this has changed a little bit this year. So there are more possibilities than in the past at the FNRS. So now it is possible to have one promoter only. It is possible to have one promoter and a co-promoter from the same university, which is the second possibility. And here the budget goes up slightly. For one promoter, the budget is Florence, remind me, what is the exact amount of budget that can ask by one promoter?
One promoter is 84,000
Yes,
euros.
and around 84,000. It might go up a little bit. So this will be our weave rules will come out during the coming days. So two promoters is 100,000 euros. Two promoters from the same university, and if you have promoters coming from several universities, then it's the maximum amount is 120,000 euros. And I think this is pretty different from what is being practiced within FWO, because if I'm not mistaken, within the FWO, you can ask for a budget of 145,000 euros per promoter, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, on our side, it's indeed staff plus consumables maximum 145,000 euro per involved institution.
Okay.
And there's no maximum on the number of institutions eligible at FWO that you can actually include on our site. So, for example, the next question is it possible for two Flemish centers to then include one FNRS center? The Flemish applicant would apply as two centers as in a regular FWO project. And if I've understood you correct, Joël, that is perfectly possible, both for the FWO part as well as the FNRS part. There is a question, but I think you already mentioned the budget. So in the FNRS Weave guidelines, it is indicated that there is a maximum budget of 120,000 euro per year. I guess that's the case when you add, Joël, another institution and as such
Exactly,
a co-promoter from another institution. But I think more importantly, is this limit for the entire project, so FWO plus FNRS, or only the FNRS part? Well, today is your lucky day. It's only for the FNRS part. So the FWO part follows the budget regulations of FWO. So you should always think in a weave context that in terms of eligibility of partners, in terms of budget that can be requested, that's always directed by the regulations of the funding agency you will request money to, or your own respective funding agency. So I think that's one we tackled as well. Then there's two questions, I think, on FNRS side, on the number of partners. So there was somebody that kind of wanted to have some confirmation on it's a bit further down. Let me check whether on the 4 eligible partners at FNRS, so they kind of noticed there was a discrepancy between the number of partners FWO has an agreement with and those at FNRS. So there was one question on
yes.
From what I understood, French-speaking only has access to 4 of the 12 partners. Could this information be confirmed and explained? And there was like a follow-up question on potential extension of the group of partners you collaborate with, for example.
Yes, I can first of all I can confirm, yes, there's 4 partners in total for the FNRS. Yes, and so there are 12 partners currently within the Weave initiative, which means that the FNRS does not work with all partners. This is how can I say this? To expand the number of partners, it's very simple. It's the board of trustees of the FNRS that needs to agree on expanding these partners. So as soon as our board of trustees will allow for us to have more partners, then we will expand the number of partners.
Thank you, Joël. There's a question. Wallonia is mentioned as a possible partner of the FWO in the FWO slides. Are the institutions related to FNRS but located in Brussels excluded?
Yes.
think
let
it's a
me let,
vocabulary question.
yeah, let me take that one as well. This is just yeah, we of course the FNRS finances research in the Wallonia Brussels Federation. So yeah, in the slides in the slides of FWO where you see Wallonia, you can always think Brussels on the side because Brussels is an integral part of this as well, and Brussels institutions are of course eligible as well.
Yeah, you should think whatever is eligible if you would apply for a regular project at FWO is also eligible for the FWO side of a WEAF project, and the same I would say for our southern neighbors of the country. There's a follow-up question on the 3+1 PhD budget for FNRS, and I guess this is again in the DFG context, but Tine, maybe you can answer this question. What about FWO?
Yes, I answered a similar question already in the chat box, but FWO has doesn't have such a rule or solution in place. So whenever DFG is involved as lead or as partner agency, it's a project duration of maximally 3 years, also at FWO side, also at Flemish side.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Then there's a question, can I apply for WEAF FNRS lead agency if I have a project running granted in 2024? So I'm not sure whether this is a question asked by a Flemish or a French-speaking PI, but Tina, let's say it's an FWO supervisor that already has a project running. Is it then possible that he or she can still apply for a WEAF project with FNRS as a lead?
If this project that was granted in 2024 will still be ongoing on the 1st of January 2026, this will already count as one project, one running ongoing project, then there is still one possible. So it is possible then to still submit to, for example, FNRS as lead or to another lead or for a regular FWO project.
And Florence, assuming this question was asked by a French-speaking PI.
Yeah, so then that would mean that you would have one PDR running, so you cannot apply for the PDR for another PDR, so FNRS as lead for another 3 years. However, you can apply to a WEAF. So you can go to the call, let's just say of the FWO, for example, and apply there as a partner.
Okay, then we're almost there. There's 5 more questions. So I think there's also a question on the actual cost of hiring. A salary of postdocs can be very different from one country to another. Does it mean that members of a project will get different salaries according to where they work? For example, an FNRS team versus an SNSF team, or are some mechanisms to be taken into consideration? Florence?
I was actually typing. Yeah, I was
you were
typing,
typing?
but it's okay. Go ahead, Florence. I can add if needed.
No, I mean, that's why you have to respect the rules of your own agency. So if you work in Switzerland, maybe the financial reality is not the same as in Belgium. So you will get a different salary, an absolute number, but in quality of life, I think it will be roughly equivalent. And we can say it for many other countries. So you just respect the rules from your funding agency, and then everybody gets their share. But Tina, go ahead.
It's perfectly correct. I have nothing to add, indeed. So there is no specific mechanism in place to have the same.
And I guess I would say those salaries, the salary costs also reflect the way the cost of living in particular countries. And I guess in Switzerland, the cost of living is also higher compared to Belgium, for example. Then there's a question, are ESF researchers eligible for the FWO side? But from the FWO context, I know ESF as European Science Foundation, which is actually the company we use or make use of to do our external peer review. But I'm not sure you're actually referring to ESF or another institution, or Tina, do you have a clue on?
No, I wanted to refer to our Article 7 of our regulations of the regular projects fundamental research, where you can find the host institutions in Flanders that are eligible for FWO funding. I'm not aware of ESF either, but you can always ask your question by email as well, and then I can try to figure out what you mean specifically with ESF, or if it means something else as federal.
Federal,
Okay, federal.
federal
Thanks.
institutions. Thank you. Sorry for that. So, a federal research institution cannot act as a main Flemish host institution. So that's actually the main Flemish host institution is the core part of a research project at FWO. So such an institution need always to be there, but they can team up with a federal research institution. So if it's done in partnership with one of the eligible main Flemish host institutions, federal research institutions are eligible. Thank you for clarifying that. Then there's a question on the collaboration with NWO, so the domain signs, and more specifically on whether letters of support can be added from companies supporting the project. Does it bring added value? Well, in principle, we don't allow any extra uploads apart from the project description. But in this particular case, as this is something which is typically managed by our account administrators, I would also advise you to really contact the domain specific account administrators, and they will be better placed to actually provide you with a detailed answer on that. And maybe if you go to our website and contact, you can find the persons responsible for that. And then I think we're almost there. So we've got 3 questions left, and they're all have to do with I already have one running, or I already submitted one. Can I still submit one? Or so I'll start at the top. So there's one, I think, which is FWO related. So Tina, maybe you can tackle that one. So can a supervisor for a currently submitted FWO junior application submitted in December 2024 act as a supervisor for the upcoming FWO weave call, given the new rules in terms of how many projects one can act as a supervisor?
Since I read submitted in December 2024, I'm not sure if it concerns a submission of a regular research project, fundamental research, or if you are referring to a postdoctoral fellowship application. Because if it is the latter, then it's actually, you have to see it separately from a research project, fundamental research. So we indeed had our deadline for the postdoctoral fellowships in December. But for the calculation of the quota, then it's for the calculation of the quota, you do not have to take into account the fellowship applications.
So not the postdocs, but also not the PhD call, which will close on the 1st of March.
So if you are supervisor of a junior postdoctoral fellow in application, you should not take this into account. It's really seen separately. The quota to which we are referring in the slides, in the previous slide, it really concerns the FWO regular research project, fundamental research, including weave.
So then this is a question for FNRS, I think, but I think it's a question of general interest. If one applies for a weave project with FNR in April, can you apply with the same project in the PDR call in July with the same partner from Luxembourg, since the decision for the weave will come only after the PDR call ends?
Well, double funding is not allowed. So that's the first thing. So you can apply for a different project with the same partner, of course, there's no problem since you can have both, but double funding is not allowed. So submitting the same project in different calls is not a good idea.
That's very clear, and that should...
It also goes a bit against the spirit of weave as in general as well, because the idea is to avoid double jeopardy. So you only go through one time the procedure. So that's the idea then, yeah. So it's not allowed.
Okay, and then the last question. So, can you, as a promoter of an ongoing FNRS PDR, submit as promoter a FNRS FWO weave through FNRS PDR application? I think I
Yeah.
also know the answer by now, but Florence and Joël, go ahead.
Yeah, very simple no. Yeah, this is not allowed because if you submit an RPDR call with or without a weave partner, you are submitting a PDR. There's a règle de cumul, as we say, for PDR project, and you can only have one running at the same time. So this is not possible. What you can do is submit a weave application, as we call it, meaning that you participate in the FWO call and you submit the weave application at FWO.
Okay, thank you for that. I think there are no further questions, so this brings us to the end of the Q&A, and by that I guess also the end of today's info session. So before concluding, I would like to thank our three speakers of today, Joël, Florence, and Tina. And of course, I would also like to thank all of you for showing interest in Weave. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either FWO or to FNRS. I think we will make the PPT available online, where you can find all our contact details, and we will be more than happy to further assist you in applying for a Weave project.
The recording of the session will also be online. So.
Okay, even better. Thank you, Florence. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
have a nice afternoon.
Yes.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.